And I'll tell a story, a short story. This is a story that I just saw on JEM, Jewish Educational Media. Um, a fellow here from Israel, he had a good friend, got married, moved to America, and somehow or other got involved in drugs and that whole world of drugs. And he just, descended and descended into the lowest types of things. And until he, of course, he left, Judaism, he left everything, and he was just involved in and just disgusting. I don't think he was involved in murder. I don't think he murdered anybody, but or raped anyone. I don't think he did things to anybody, but like that. But I mean, let's not get into details. The person who told the story didn't want to get into details anyway. So his family, he left his home. He was living in some basement with all these rasty people, and so rasty. I don't know if there's such a word nowadays. It used to be. Used to be a long time ago. And with all these terrible people. So this fellow that's telling the story, he was sent by the family to try, because they used to be friends, to try to save him. So he finally located him. We talked to him. Nothing helped. Nothing helped. And he got him to contact other people. Nothing helped. Finally, he started to try to convince him to go to see the Rebbe. No way. Lubavitcher Rebbe. This story must have been like 40 years ago. So he finally convinced him that he would to write a letter to the Rebbe and just ask the Rebbe for help. So he wrote a sort of a detailed letter to the Rebbe about the terrible things that he was doing and how far he had descended. And but he gave him the letter and told his friend from Israel, told him, the one who's telling the story, that the fellow was the drug addict. So he gave them the letter and said that he didn't want to give it to the secretaries of the Rebbe. He wanted to give it to the Rebbe himself. So he didn't know exactly how to do this, how to go about it. So whatever reason it is, he went to the Rebbe's house. The Rebbe had a house which is a couple blocks away from the Rebbe's center. And he wrote this letter, and he took the letter to the Rebbe's house, knocked on the door, and someone answered, I guess one of the Rebbe's helpers or something, and they said, listen, this is not where you do things. You don't come to the Rebbe's house. You have to go to the Rebbe's, to the Rebbe's office and give it to one of the secretaries and close the door. So he kept knocking it, and this happened a couple of times. And he said, listen, this is urgent, it's life and death. I just want to give you just give it to the Rebbe. He doesn't want to give it to this. So he gave it to this person. Went back to the Rebbe's headquarters, called 770 Eastern Parkway. He went back there. And he's waiting. He's waiting. The Rebbe finally arrived. And the Rebbe gave him a piercing look, like an X-ray or something. Just sort of, shook him. And shortly thereafter, one of the Rebbe's secretaries, the Rebbe had these very wonderful, talented secretaries, and this was Rabbi Klein. And the Rebbe gave his answer. And he asked Rabbi Klein to give this answer back, just to write it down, to copy it down. It could be the Rebbe gave the answer in Yiddish, and the Rabbi Klein translated into Hebrew, because these people spoke Hebrew, Israelis. So when Rabbi Klein wrote the answer down, he was crying. I don't know if he knew what this addict had written, but he knew what the Rebbe's answer was. And the Rebbe's answer was basically, if I remember, that the Rebbe said that you write that you've only been addicted and that you had this tremendous descent in your life for a little more than a half of a year. So if so, you know that you can do without it. You lived very fine without it. And now you write that you can't get out of it, that you're just so seriously addicted you can't get out of it. And the Rebbe said, it all depends on your will. And that if you will and you decide that you want to, you'll find that it's a lot easier than you think. That's what he wrote. And this person said that this fellow, he had written to other people, other doctors, who knows, I don't know what, and nothing had helped previously. And this letter of the Rebbe shook this young man up, and he, within a short amount of time, he stopped his addiction, and he went back to a totally normal life. So true, it was his willpower, but it was also because of the empowering that the Rebbe gave him, or let's say even more, the door that the Rebbe opened for him, that God could empower him. So, I mean, if you've ever known anyone that's addicted, it's terrible. People that are addicted, it's just terrible. They just cannot stop. A truly addicted person, he cannot stop what he's doing until they just hit rock bottom, and they just can't do their addiction anymore. They just run out of money, or they get put into jail, or or they're threatened by the mafia, or who knows what. But they just can't stop. No matter what happens, they have to take another drink or another drug or another gamble or another whatever. There's just hundreds of types of addictions. And here the Rebbe just wrote a letter to this person and told him that he has the power to do it and that he can do it. And suddenly he did have the power, and he stopped. So we see that's essentially the idea of what a Rebbe is to let us know who we really are. And that's what Mashiach will do to all of the Jews, and the Jews will, in turn, reveal it to all mankind. Have a good day with Mashiach now.